Hey everybody, it's Michael from Steelyard. Welcome to the next on Airstream and Steelyard's newest series of chats focused on ways to learn really cool stuff in the industry, which is a much better way than saying education, right? So just really cool ways to learn, which is what we're doing here today. So last month we chatted with Gail Dovey about her new book, Business Breakthrough: Your Creative Value Blueprint to Get Paid What You're Worth, which was really awesome. And this month we are chatting with Jana Platina Phipps, also known as the Trim Queen. Let's start with a little bit about Jana. So she is an embellishment expert, a trimmings designer, an agent, a content creator, a blogger, and now, and this is what we're going to get into, a tennis coach and an educator. So Jana, welcome. So good to see you.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to be in the Airstream again with you, even virtually. I just love chatting with you. We always, have these great talks. So thank you for the invitation.
We do. And it really, we chatted about this a moment ago. It was about a year ago that we last chatted in the Airstream, right? And, that at that time, I was thinking about it, Jenna, we were smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. This was, and you're in the New York City area. And I thought back on our conversation that day. I was in the middle of doing these chats with people all over the world for High Point Market. And there was a lot of positivity. And that day, you kind of reminded me of something, and I think I texted you afterwards or emailed you afterwards about breathing, right? And you really, that day, you talked about breathing and allowing yourself to feel how you felt in those crazy moments, right, of the pandemic. And we're past that now a little bit, right? We're in a different place. But there was something else you said that I found really interesting ahead of today's chat. Is you talked about planting seeds, and you talked about not knowing and being able to tell what will blossom from those seeds. Kind of funny, right? Because you planted some seeds a year ago that are now blossoming, which is the very genesis of this conversation, right? Which is about a whole new direction for you. So, boy, did some things blossom, huh?
Oh gosh, yes. And I think, and we don't have a quick timeline. That's the interesting thing is this time has really been a conversation with me and my following and my clients of not just like, it seems like pre-COVID, there was a lot of pushing, and I always believed as an agent or as a designer and salesperson is that if the fit was right, it was good, but it was always pushing. Now it's been more of a give and take, like, what do you need? Or am I uniquely suited to help you with that? And so, getting a little bit away from Trim Queen and a little bit more into my umbrella business, which is Home Couture Collective, which is my original 17 years ago business that I started. I'm doing a lot more consulting and more listening. And, there are ways that people have seen me, how I've grown my business, what my profile, what my strengths are. And it's been cool to see what people are coming to me for. I was like, oh, I can do that. Oh my God, can I do that? But I can do that. It's kind of pushed me as an entrepreneur to find an opportunity and come together with people or brands, really like brands. I just finished, I'm in the middle of a influencer program with UltraSuede actually. And, they saw me and then we collaborated and we're doing these fantastic projects. And it's like, oh my gosh, like I wouldn't be able to access that before. Like that was coming together and through connections, industry networking, my visibility on Instagram. So I really like this idea of listening to what the market needs and, being agile as in agility, but, agility is moving quickly, but keeping your balance. And I feel, that's why I called my coaching social media agility or Instagram agility, is because as creatives and entrepreneurs and as brands with all the stuff, the delays, the supply chain, everything going on, we have to be agile, so it's not like we just, put our posts for Instagram in a schedule and just let it go. I mean, every day there's something that we're addressing. And so being able to keep your balance as business owner, I think I've really focused on that. So yeah, lots of seeds planted and lots of interesting projects and, some initiatives that are beyond what I had thought of a year ago, so I have a lot of good things percolating.
That's great. And I think, Jenna, one of the things you said is listening, right? And that's really the thing. We're in a unique time in our industry. There's a lot happening that people didn't see coming, obviously, and it's forcing people to pivot in a big way. And I think listening and understanding what those challenges are, you've got an incredible background. So when you talk about shifting a little more from trim queen into some of these other things, it's that background that allowed you, to have the experience to be able to listen and
True.
respond in this way, right? Which I think is really incredible. So, I am fascinated with the whole trim queen aspect and trim alchemy and everything else. It's been one of the things you and I have talked a lot about. But today we're talking about Instagram and agility, as you just said. Now, I warned you ahead of time. I know very little about Instagram. I rely on folks on our team that are much better about these things. And I think that's probably part of the reason you're doing this, right? Is that there's a lot of fear around Instagram and social media. Let's start first with Instagram. Why Instagram? What is it about that platform that you see as being something that our industry can really make use of? Let's start there.
Well, for one thing, interior designers, workrooms, brands are all on Instagram. It's kind of like a really quick serotonin rush. Like you can do a lot quickly. It's super visual, and as an industry, we're super visual. In Facebook, there's a lot of more sharing. There's a lot of politics. Instagram, that is not there. Instagram is kind of like a level playing field. There's like no barrier to entry. And then with the hashtags, we can, like-minded people can find each other. So, I've been able to introduce myself, or even to collaborate with people in Australia, people in Italy, like people that I wouldn't meet on another platform. So I think it's, you get a lot of bang for your time spent there. Like there's a lot of return on investment in Instagram. And the other thing is, I think you can tell your story in Instagram like nowhere else. If someone comes to your profile page, they're going to look at the first 9 squares, and you have 3 seconds to convince them whether to follow you or not. So I think storytelling, telling your brand story and creating a brand experience in Instagram, that's what's so magnanimous about it. And it's social. So you're socializing on Instagram. Social media is called social media for a reason, because it is very social. Now, the backstory is it's we all use it to market our business, but essentially you're really telling your story first. And then the business part is a byproduct of telling that story. You're attracting people by what you do, what you make, what you're selling, how you communicate. All of that is telling your story, and then you do the sell.
Interesting.
But you attract it. It's not like sell. You're attracting your ideal client, and that's what I love about it, because I'm not a hard sell person. Like I've always believed if the fit is right, we can do business.
Of course.
No.
So it's funny, right? Because I'm a bit of an old school sales guy. I have a little bit of that old school mentality when it comes to sales. And there's the idea of content is king, obviously. And there's this, these connections that you make and what you can do with it. Elevator pitches, right? So that you get me thinking right about elevator pitches with 9 squares, right? And how you're telling your story. So by the way, when I say old school, totally off topic, but I found out a term this weekend we've got to talk about for a second.
Ooh.
Apparently I'm a geriatric millennial. So really, really disturbing. But yeah, so apparently I bridged 2 generations, and the oldest of the millennials, there's these young kids are saying, oh, you were born in the late 1900s.
Oh God.
As if at the late 1900s, like, wait a second. No, so the 80s babies, basically, right? Early 80s babies, late 70s babies were. Yeah. Anyway, don't get me started on that. That's not what we're here to talk about. But as a
I guess I'm a geriatric Gen Xer then, or something like that. I like that term. Well, I like, you've heard of grand millennials, which is like granny style with millennials. Like, I love all this stuff. It's so
okay.
It's so cool.
Well, I just like being old school. So old school sales guy here, whether I'm a geriatric millennial or not. So I think of content, what you just talked about, but there's mechanics too, right? So having good
Totally.
content is not the only thing that makes you successful on Instagram. So take us through that, right? I mean, there's a whole part of what you teach about mechanics, I'd imagine, as well.
I No, of course. And the first thing that I teach people, well, let's talk about two things. One is the common pain point is people are totally overwhelmed. Like they don't know what to post. They sweat about it and they're just overwhelmed. So I break that down into a system where I have people take categories. So it could be, for example, they could have 10 categories. They could have full room design, they could have furniture details, they could have who's on their team profiles, they have textiles, like, so they create, whether it's, brand and they have a team. In some instances, I teach to a team, and other times it's to individuals. But so they figure out these categories of what they want to build for their 9 grid to tell their story. So they know they don't wake up on Monday like sweating. What am I going to post? They have a rotation. And the other thing that I say, it's quality over quantity. So I want people to do something sustainable because I see people burn out. They can't sustain every day. So we bring it down to 3 times a week, or we bring it down to twice a week. Like, that's fine. You're still creating your story, right? So I think that's really important. So the first thing is like creating categories that fit to your business. Oftentimes what happens is they find out there's a deeper problem, which is to really figure out who they are, what their business is, like what are their values. So that's another thing that I work with people on, is to really choose 5 values that they will make sure are incorporated. They're like core brand soul essence, I call it, into their business. So it could be, for me, it's like creativity and dedication and exceeding expectations and beauty and, things like that. So you don't put them all in one post, but those are in the backdrop. So you have your content categories, you have your values that you want to come across. And then for the mechanics, it's how to post, carousels. So you have up to 10 pictures you can post. And oftentimes you don't want to shoot your wad, but you do want to, show more than one photo. Then you also have video, you have reels. Now I'm a big stories person. I really love behind the scenes, but a lot of things that I post behind the scenes, I posted one today for you guys. Just, I don't want that on my feed. Maybe a little more fun. It may be a little more lifestyle, like with my kids or what have you, or it may be the mess of my studio as I'm trying to create this beautiful content. So all that goes into stories, but everything, I like to say, cook once, eat twice. Like everything can be double dipped, every content. So whether you have something on your post, you're always sharing it to stories. We just, that's rule number 1. Like you take that extra step to always share it to stories, because you have people looking at stories up at the top that never look at posts. They don't scroll, right. They swipe. So you kind of have 2 different audiences. Like the stories is kind of like, I think of it as reality TV series. And then the posts are usually a little more posed, a little more editorial. So you have 2 different people looking 2 different ways. And say they see something twice, who cares? And Instagram is a drive-by anyway, unless you're posting at the time when that person is looking, or they actually look up your profile, like your content's never going to get in front of them. So, for that, and if you're creating content, I mean, this stuff takes time. That's the other thing. It's not like a 1-minute thing. Like my posts generally take 20 to 30 minutes. Like it's not, and I build that into my day. And the other thing is, as far as foundational, is that I had an aha moment with an interior designer, and she is fabulous and like really famous, and she hates Instagram. But once she started to see creating content as a part of the creative process, she really started to enjoy it. So, there's a bit of reframing going on. And so that's what I kind of teach people to do that. And so what happens, as we talked about reaching out, you have this bigger visibility. And for mechanics, a lot of that is hashtagging, it's tagging particular accounts. When you're tagging someone like an ampersand, like a social tag, you're kind of tapping them on the shoulder, like, look at me, or I love you, or I love what you're doing. Like, it's a little tap and it's a compliment. So, as a good guest or hostess, you thank them or you share, or you kind of got to think of it in that social aspect. So there are lots of little tricks like that. And then content creation, there's a million tricks. So I share, Canva, I share InShot, I share some of these things. But eventually it's like, learning tennis or learning anything, you start to get agility, and some muscle memory with this stuff. And as you practice it, you're like, oh yeah, I get this. Like, but you can't have that from the beginning. You can't have that without starting.
No.
So in my small group agility training, what we do is I have 4 to 6 people. And I realized after that I run it like my tennis clinics, is that, first is a presentation and some evaluation, and people ask questions, and I have them do an intake form so I can really address exactly where they're struggling. And then, they go out into the world and they practice. So once they have their next 9 posts that they feel good about, then we circle back and we have a private training, like one-on-one. So then we can, analyze it. We can look at the analytics. It's just really fun. And it's really fun to watch people just like become confident in something, and
I bet. That's something that, is so important to the industry, but can be so challenging for people, and to see that competency grow. So we're going to get into the tennis connection in a second, but let's talk about you mentioned small group training. So you're offering this agility course, Instagram agility, right? You're offering this 3 different ways. That is in a small group, like you mentioned. So that might be for whom? For a small firm, for who?
Yeah, it goes both. Sometimes I'll have an individual want to join a small group. So I have several individuals, and I do that usually 1 to 2 Wednesdays a month. So we agree on a time and we get everyone together. So those could be individuals that don't want to take a private training. Like,
Okay.
a lot of people learn better in a group, and then they're learning from other people's questions. So that's small group training. And then I'll have, like, recently I had a marketing team from a brand come to me. And so I had 6 people between marketing and designers, in their firm. So it was kind of like a private group session, which was awesome because I could totally tailor it to them and what their needs were. And then what I find is sometimes after the small group training, people want additional hand-holding and accompaniment. So I have a package that I put together, so they can buy a package for, say, 5 hours, or they can do it. Sometimes I had one of the designers I worked with had this like huge mention in, a publication. She's like, I don't know what to do with this. So she hired me to help her create content around it. So it's like, even though it's like, in a magazine, we can just do a still shot. We could do a reel. Like I just finished doing a reel that I loved because it was just another way to showcase something, that was more animated. So whether it's a reel or a video or a boomerang or the stories, like, we can take this content and, again, cook once, eat twice. Actually, we're eating 10 times off of this, and it's, there's all strategy to that, even though it seems innocuous and things are a little casual because it's social, like, there's definitely a strategy. But I kind of I like to run that line. I think content that engages the best is either entertaining, educational, or inspiring. So when I look at all these selfies of the kids and blah blah blah, I'm like, oh, for brand, that doesn't work, right?
Right.
So we have to tell a story with, using those 3 pillars. I think it's important.
So storytelling is key, right? So the reaction, though, that you just mimicked, right, of the designer has this magazine feature, and she goes, right? What do I do with that? Is that the most common reaction you get for somebody who needs your class, who needs to come and get some training, so as to not be overwhelmed? Is that the biggest blockage for people, that they're overwhelmed?
They're overwhelmed. They feel like they're playing catch up, that everybody else is doing it. I don't know what my unique secret sauce is. Like, how do I express myself in this medium? And then they just choke, like they just get paralyzed and they do nothing. So that's the most common thing. And so I try to get them, like I said, with the building blocks of the categories and, honing down quality over quantity. And the other thing is, like, not caring about the likes. like, because what they end up doing is sometimes like they're really formulating. That's what I said to you earlier. Like sometimes I feel like I say business psychologist because they're really formulating what their values are in their business, you know. So it's like they're kind of living in to their Instagram. Like someone called it, my friend at Textile Market last week said, "Oh, this is Jana. She's the self-proclaimed trim queen, but then she became the trim queen." And I was like, "Well, thanks a lot." But it is kind of true. Like someone called me that and I took that moniker. And then, if you look at my content from 3 years ago, it's completely different from today. You can see the evolution, but I couldn't get to today without starting back then. So you have to have this visual expression, and then it can also shape your business, and also it makes your business become more clear even to yourself. And I think that's just totally cool, from a coaching standpoint.
I think it's part of the story, right? You talk about storytelling. And in fact, at High Point Market coming up, June 7th, you'll be part of a panel on storytelling, social storytelling, right? At Universal, June 7th at 11:30, with quite the lineup of Jenna Christensen, Erica Saurit, and Corey Damon Jenkins, right?
Yes, I was so thrilled to be on that panel with them because Erica is a consultant, Jenna is a business coach, and Corey is just larger than life and doing so many amazing things. So I feel it was nice to get that acknowledgement, to that I do storytell, and honestly, Michael, it was inadvertent in the beginning, and then it really helped me kind of hone my content and my connections through that.
Well, I think the story is Trim Queen to Dr. Jana, right? So this is the overwhelming nature of social media. You've boiled it down. You put it into a format that people can learn from. So tell our members, tell our people listening, how can they sign up for one of these classes? Take us through that.
Oh yeah, so it's very easy. You go to my website, trimqueen.com, and you will see shop. If you go to my shop, I have a list of trainings there. So you just go to the trainings, and then I have the options, and you just sign up that way, and then we work on a date. It's very
Perfect.
easy.
Well, we're going to put it in our show notes as well, but I think it's important, right? The evolution of the business continues. Evolution of learning how to use social media continues. And if we can take a step back and breathe, as you and I talked about a year ago, and say, what do I need to learn? How do I need to make myself better, to pivot and respond to my clients better, respond in my business better, create new businesses? So I promised we were going to get to the tennis connection. So this business was created because of tennis. Is that what I heard?
Well, yeah, it was kind of wild. So when I had a large contract that fell through because of COVID, and I've never not been traveling all the time with my business. So it kept me home, and I thought, what are the assets that I can, use, when I'm stuck at home. And we have an old clay tennis court, believe it or not, and we're in Northern Westchester. And I thought, well, everyone wants to be outside and play tennis. So a couple people tapped me. I reached out to see if it was a good idea. And I had some parents who were like, "Oh, you're saving our lives. We have nowhere to send our kids. We don't want them to be in a camp with, 200 people." And so I said, "Well, bring them over." And the nature of my property is that we have the tennis court. We also have some hiking trails right behind our house. And, I'm the queen of crafting, so it kind of was like this natural thing that bubbled up. And we did it.
Camp Counselor Jana, is that a new title we're
Well,
going to add there?
we called it the Summer Slam. And oh my gosh, I got to do so much. Like we did tie dyeing, and we did tassel making, and we did so much stuff. And it was from the morning till like 2 p.m. And we just created this little community, this little family. We had dance contests, and we had playlists, and really I taught children tennis with the help of my tennis coach and my daughter, that never would have picked up a racket otherwise. They would have been at sleepaway, doing lacrosse, like whatever. So we kind of gave them these seeds of tennis that are still developing. So that was just super, super cool. And then I ended up getting my teaching certification, like professional certification, something I always wanted to do. I just never got off the track to do it. because I've been too busy and just it wasn't a focus. So that was really cool today to do. So I'm doing a little bit of that this summer. I'm not doing a camp again. Like I'm too busy with my regular business, but I am assisting with my local tennis club, and they're happy to have me. And I love the kids. Like I just love. It's very creative, Michael, teaching children. My kids are a little bit older now, but just getting into their speaking into their listening, what's going to turn them on, and everybody has their own style, but I really want to impart like fun, and there's so many life lessons in tennis, just practice and dedication, but also just having fun with it, because that makes you want to do the next level, is when you're having fun. I mean, that's like business, right? If we're not having fun, we don't want to take those projects.
No, and that's the connection you talked about, was the agility on the tennis court to the agility in Instagram. And look, just based on the fun we're having and the way you're describing this, if you need a little help in social media, everybody out there, this is the class. This is the person that's going to bring all of this together for you and make it less overwhelming. And not something that you just do because you have to do, but you do because it's going to benefit your business, right? Yes. And it's going to tell your story. And that's where this is. So we're going to have all the links in the show notes. We're going to redirect everybody to your website. And then we're going to see you June 7th in the Universal Showroom at High Point Market. I cannot wait personally to be back at High Point Market. It's just, we haven't talked for a year, and I need to see you. I need to give you a hug, and that's what our industry is about. It's a little bit of a family. Right. And we need to be back together, and we need to be driving the industry forward. So Jenna, I'm so thankful you took the time to talk to us. Thankful that you pivoted and created something like this that is in great need in our industry. So we're hopeful that a lot of people sign up, that you are too busy to coach anything else besides Instagram agility going forward. We will see you June 7th at High Point Market. Thanks so much for your time.
Michael, you're the best. Thank you. And I can't wait to see you.
See you soon.